We're so excited. Today we have some special guests joining us. We have Ahmad, Derek, and Joseph, and we're all coming from Texas, LA, and Detroit, Michigan. And today we're going to talk about a lot of fun topics. We're going to ask these amazing guys their questions that they have for us women that sometimes we don't always get to ask. And so I'm going to first pass it over to Derek. And Derek, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm going to pass it to Joseph. And so, right, Joseph? Yeah, Joseph. Joseph, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello. My name is Joseph Harrington from Detroit, Michigan, and I was recently in the military, and now I'm out. I'm a full-time student now, and I'm glad to be on the show today.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you. And so, also, I'm just going to introduce everyone while we have everyone on. Ahmad, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Ahmad Harris. I'm right here in Houston, Texas, with my beautiful fiance, and I'm excited to do the show as well. So.
Thank you, Ahmad. And so, Derek, hello.
Hey, this is Derek Doepker coming from LA, and I am an author.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And so, Joseph, how about we start the questions with you?
Okay, that's great. My question is, you know, as a man in a relationship with a woman who's very goal-oriented, you sometimes try to figure out the best way to support her in accomplishing those goals. So it's like my question is more like, how do I support her and find ways to like empower her and help her reach those goals?
That just melted my heart.
So, ladies, who wants to go first? And whoever wants to answer first, I'm going to pass it to one of you two. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and we can kind of go around because that's an awesome question.
Yes, it is. And since I gave a reaction to it, I'll go ahead and you know, give you guys an answer for that. So, my name is Marisol, and I'm coming from LA as well. I do marketing and event planning. And to answer your question, I think that in itself, just communicating and just asking the partner, the female partner, how you can help, that is a huge, huge, huge effort in general, and I think it opens the door for the female to know that she can depend on you, because depending on the personality of the female, she may be like independent, she likes to, you know, be in the driver's seat and handle things on her own. So maybe she doesn't know how to accept support from, you know, another person, and or they've, you know, a guy has never done that for her. So the fact that, let's just say, you know, we're in a relationship and a guy would ask me that in itself would just mean the world to me, and I think we could start small. I would probably start with small steps, like you know, just to kind of test the waters myself and see how much I am able to allow, you know, another person to help me. So.
Ooh, that was good.
Awesome.
So, you know what, I'm going to piggyback off of that because I have to say I'm guilty of that, where I've always been, I grew up being so independent and on my own and having to just figure it out myself, that if a man or a male partner were to ask me, like, hey, how can I support you? I wouldn't even know how to react to it. Like, what? Like, shut up. You know, like, it would just probably be kind of like rejection. But overall, I agree with Marisol. I think it's taking a baby step and just asking, because what it does is it kind of opens up that communication way to, for me, as a woman, to say, oh, he actually cares about what I'm feeling or what I'm doing, And in that sense, I think it's more of right after that, for me, my answer would be like, just be there for me. Like, be there. Don't even, it doesn't necessarily mean actually doing something, but when I'm in an event or when I'm gonna, like, just show your support. Just be there for me, with me, even if you're just asking me about what I'm doing. For example, anything that has to do with sisterhood, if I, you know, with a partner, I would hope that he asks me, hey, how did this show go? Like, I know you guys are working on this and this and that. Or how is the water campaign, you know, going that we're working on? Are you guys successful? What is it? What can I do to help you?
It shows interest. Yeah, it basically shows the interest that they have in you and your life and your activities, and it's not just a superficial interest of that partner. You know, it goes deeper on a more intellectual level, on a more emotional level. So that in and of itself is significant, you know. So.
Yeah, and Nancy, I think what you said is perfect because, you know, the biggest thing that I can say is encouragement and knowing, you know, knowing the person. So whether you're dating or you're married to them, just being mindful of what it is that they're involved in, just like you said, Nancy, and then just encouraging them. And a lot of times, let me let you in on a little secret about us women, because in a prior conversation before we started the show, we kind of were talking about how women are, you know, really complicated. But a lot of times women love to talk, and I'm not saying that men don't, because you have some men that are talkers, but generally speaking, right? Us women really have a lot to say, and sometimes we just need to say it, and they're more fixers, and so they feel like they need to fix, and sometimes we just need to be, you know, heard. And so for me, in my perspective, it's about just encouraging them and being there for them. Like you said, Nancy, when we have something going on, like being there with them says so much. And for me also, the subtle things, when he knows, which he does, and which is nice, the things that I really love, or the details about me, he really pays attention to just the details. And the fact that he knows those details means the world to me, and it makes me feel really supported. And I think even men and women both need to feel really supported.
Yeah, and I'm going to chime in right on what you said, Gina, and the women can tell me if this is on point from my experience, which is the idea that men are fixers, problem solvers, want to look for something, you know, proactive to do. And so I think the guys can appreciate when you hear things like, just be there, just encourage. We're like, what does that mean? What does that look like? How do I act upon that? Like, so what I found has been helpful was just learning kind of about the psychology of difference between men and women's brains. So Gina was saying, like, for women, a lot of times it's not a problem to be solved as much as they just need to vent or express themselves, and it works itself out through that process. So what's helped me, and then this is where I can get clarification if this is on point, is that my role is less about trying to fix it and more about creating, as a man, an environment for her to feel safe and supported, and like she can express herself and say, you know, even drawing it out, tell me more, you know, how, like actually encouraging, letting her know, like, oh, I'm not judging you right now. I think that's another thing, is saying empathetic statements would be another good thing to learn. So as a guy, like if I need something to do, it's active listening, reflecting back, like, oh, so what you're saying is it felt frustrating because you were feeling over, you know, repeating back what they said, really trying to get it so they know that they were heard and understood, and appreciating them where there's no judgment. And that's really all it is letting them go, okay, this is a safe spot where I can express myself. And so the proactive thing for the male brain is create that environment, create that opportunity for them, and kind of a lot of times I think for women they'll just kind of process it all on their own. Is that accurate, would you say?
That sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah. You want
So-
to pop me up? I'm totally kidding.
Okay, guys, help me with this. I can only speak from my experience, but a lot of times we get impatient because we just want to ask what's wrong and fix it and move on to the next thing. and we get impatient and don't want to, like Derek said, create that space so she can later come back and say, you know, I was feeling this at this time. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to deal with it at the time. But, you know, I think we as men need to be patient and wait for her after we've opened that door.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So what do you think, Joseph? Did that answer your questions, or did it steer more?
I think it answered the question. There's a lot of food for thought there, and there are some things that I can take from it and try to apply to my situation. So, yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay, so this is my question. Why is it that we feel like we're going to miss out on something better, or that we're missing out on something when we find that significant other, or that we start dating just one person? Why is it that we think there's something more that I might miss if I'm with just this person?
That's a question for the guys, I think.
You know, actually, Marisol, I really see this as a very coming from both sides, because, and first of all, what does that mean?
Like,
Great question. I think even whether you're dating or whether you're married or whether you're engaged, there's always that, and I don't know exactly if it's, you know, kind of that programming or if it's really about fear. I mean, there's so many things for me that's intermixed in that question. Like, you know, because I'm a transformation coach and I work with men and women, I've seen this specific thing with both genders. And, you know, that's a loaded question, and I'm interested to hear what your guys' input is on that.
I'm going to go first on that because I am guilty of it.
oh,
Busted!
I can honestly say that you're right there. When you're in a relationship or when you're pursuing something, and to me, now that I've been able to like kind of open up a little bit more and be more aware of what I'm doing and what I'm not doing, a big part of it, of why I find myself doing that, is because when I'm lacking and I'm putting for example, Derek and I are dating, and then I realize, gosh, he never takes out the trash. Like, I give that energy. Like, I give that he's not doing energy. And so what happens is I go out and I'm at work, and then I see a gentleman at work, and he's always taking the garbage out, and he's always taking the garbage out. And then it just kind of sparks this, like, oh, you see, he's so caring, and he's aware, and he's this. And then it's kind of like, oh, well, I don't know about him. And then it kind of like allows you to like start seeing, well, if I dated that guy, it would always be done. And so you start, I feel like whatever that one person that you're with lacks, I almost feel like if you continuously put energy into what they're not doing, their circumstances around you will happen to prove that and validate, like, yeah, you're right, he sucks. When 80-20
rule.
And, you know, and so what I feel now that I've been able to, you know, Jena's my coach, so thankfully with that, I can say that I've managed to catch myself, and my energy goes into now, what is he doing right that I love? Like, what is he doing now that I really appreciate? And what I've noticed is that my attention to others has kind of gone down. Like, I don't want to look. I don't feel the need to want to see what's going on else out there. So honestly, I think it's the energy of where we're looking at while you're in the relationship. But, you know, I feel like it takes somebody very in touch with their emotions to really understand that, because I can catch myself doing that and I immediately put a stop to it, where I'm like, oh, I'm doing it again. Okay, stop. What is it about him that I love, and why am I even with him? Oh, it's because he's very caring or whatever it is. And then I start focusing on that, and then I'm like, it kind of like the other stuff starts kind of going away. So That's my intake on that.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that point because you bring up something great, Nancy, which is even a deeper concept of us taking responsibility for our lives, just in a general sense. So in the relationships, it's there's first of all always going to be the grass is greener on the other side type of thing, and then it's pointing fingers at other people as opposed to like going, wait a second, I don't have control over other people. I have control over my own thoughts. Am I choosing to focus on what's deficient or what's there? Because in any relationship, there's going to be the things that we appreciate, and there's going to be things that frustrate us. And then it also comes back to not only looking at what am I grateful about this person. I feel that sometimes for me, and I think a lot of people, it's kind of like, how much responsibility do I want to take? It's a lot easier to just say, well, it's that person, they're not stepping up. And instead of going, wait a second, no, this means I need to have maybe a difficult conversation with them, and maybe my avoidance to like, be vulnerable or open up or communicate makes it easier for me to just want to like, oh, well, it's them, and if I were just with someone else, it would be easier. So it's the challenges that force us to step up and take responsibility for our own thoughts, and comes back to this idea that relationships, all relationships, men, women, business, romantic, it's work. It's not like the fairy tale you're with someone that you get along with and it's going to be that way forever. It actually takes
It's not.
toll.
It's not.
I know. It
Way
takes
to burst my bubble.
it takes work. It takes the work on ourselves. It takes the work with the partnership. So the more it's about cultivating that, especially for guys, this is a good guy thing. Masculine, what can I do? I can work on myself, and I can work on really strengthening this relationship that I have, as opposed to just wanting something to fall in my lap that's going to be perfect. And when I see that, then I'm not looking at all the other relationships, because I don't have a fairy tale sense that, oh, if I were just with that person, everything would be great. I go, no, it would actually, I'd have to work at that too, and I can work at this. So being really proactive and taking responsibility, I think, gets to the heart of a lot of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I agree with all of that, very much so. And I also, speaking from, a relationship standpoint, I think it's really important that you can be really honest with each other. And I say brutally honest, but I really mean to the point of not being defensive, but really having an open heart and an open mind to be able to have those deep conversations. Him and I have deep conversations all the time. And sometimes we kind of like, I feel like we join and we understand each other, and there's other times where it's like, yeah, I'm just not jiving with what your perspective, but you know what? I'm okay with that. And you have to agree sometimes to disagree. But I think through that process, you really can create that grass is greener on the other side, because there are things, there's always going to be something in your partner, or at least from my perspective, not saying that perfection isn't, attainable for some people, but, there's always something that you could really nitpick. And, I always say pick your battles, because if, generally speaking, there's a reason that you guys came together, and build on that. Grow the stuff, just like you said, Nancy, grow the stuff that you really do want, and not focus on what that person isn't doing, because the less you put energy on that, and the more that you grow the stuff, because I posted about it today about how, positive reinforcement. When you're encouraging someone and giving them that positive feedback, they want to be good, and they want to treat you good. When you're treating them good, they want to treat you good back. So that's my take.
Yeah, I think my view on it is it comes down to habits from like a personal experience point. Habits like growing up, you just have like a habit of always looking for the next thing, always wanting more. So you have to kind of condition yourself. Because none of us are born like knowing how to be in a relationship. So you got to kind of condition yourself as you enter into a new relationship, and you got to be honest with yourself on, how you're interacting with that other person. Like I have a habit of always, checking out the eye candy and everything, and then once I give into the eye candy, it's like that habit leads to the thoughts. Then the thoughts kind of start playing a factor and leading into something else, and then they can either build on and kind of ruin what could be a good relationship, or I can kind of like nip it in the bud and like just check myself and continue to focus on that relationship. So I think it all comes down to habits and conditioning yourself within that relationship, because I've been in one for about 10 years and I've been married for 6. So those first 4 years was all that conditioning, and then once we actually jumped the broom, there was still that conditioning going on, but I was able to see that I had married a good woman, and all the other things were pretty much just kind of I can't think of the word for it right now, but it was more lust versus anything else, wanting to just be with that person just because of their looks versus being with that person because of like how they made me feel and how they bettered me, so it's just avoiding those type of traps, and that's what I think it comes down to, avoiding the traps of all of the like the fantasy type stuff of like being with that person, or the thought that you can do better because this person isn't agreeing with you. I mean, are they not agreeing with you because you're wrong or you're right? So you got to ask yourself that question as well. So I think it comes down to habits, breaking those habits and being honest with yourself.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, Joseph. I mean, there's always going to be eye candy. Like, let's be honest. While you're married, it's going to exist, in life. So it really does come down to making a conscious decision, like not letting it affect your, your situation, and just being able to recognize, that what you have at home is valuable and worthy of being respectful, and loyal to that person. But it's a decision that, I believe in a couple, in a relationship, as it continues to grow and or maybe go the other direction, like you just always, kind of analyze where you're at, how you're feeling in the relationship. Do you feel like it's growing? Do you feel like it's not? And, sometimes when it doesn't work out, that's one of the reasons you got to figure out, like, maybe this really isn't for me, and it's okay to, move on. But if it is something that it's giving you that 80 versus the 20 on the other side, then, it's nothing's ever going to be perfect. So, it's going to take work and at home to be able to really just push through the fantasies or the possibility of, or the thoughts of, maybe something else being out there.
And I have to add to that, being that I've been divorced before. When I got married, Joseph, I call them distractions, because it was like all of a sudden I got married and it was like this magnet for like men coming and saying, oh, I used to be interested in hey, is your husband doing that? All these little circumstances were happening. And for a second I was like, oh my God, I didn't even get this attention when I was single. Like, what the heck is going on? But, and just like you, I mean, it was like, were they better financially than my husband? Absolutely. Were they better looking? Absolutely. And all these like better qualities were there. But I think I was so grounded in, what is my goal? My goal is to build a relationship, a family with this man. Why would I ruin that? Like, I'm not going to, and I didn't, like, I stayed focused into it does cross your mind where you're like, I wonder what would have happened. But when you realize, honestly, and you stay grounded and say, okay, why did I get married? Really, honestly, why? What is it about him that I love? And then again, it's like, okay, back to him, like, this is what, it's him and I. And so in that sense, like Marisol said, you can work hard and work hard and work hard for a certain amount of time until you honestly have to be honest with yourself and in your heart, and you say, okay, actually, I've given it everything I possibly can, and it's time to move on. Like, it's not going to work out. And that's fine. So, I mean, but like you, yes, the distractions are always there, but it was like you choose to not give in. But you have to have a very strong reason why not. And for me, it was because my goal was to build a family and have, a true deep connection with someone, and it was with him at that time. So it was like, oh, okay, great. But there are distractions that come, whether you're single, whether you're married, or whether you have a fiance. I feel like it's always going to be there. But I think it's just choosing what your ultimate goal is.
Yeah, I'll chime in. For some reason, this is popping in my mind, and it's not directly about the distractions. However, I think it's important to point out that everything is either growing or dying. There's not really a stagnant point in a relationship. So just some of the things I'm hearing make me remember, like, is this relationship growing? Are we growing together? And if the focus is on the growth, then I think that takes it off of, then why am I being distracted by other people? That might be a sign that there's some sort of decay or that the relationship is falling apart. So almost seeing it kind of like as a symptom, and then getting back to the root. Is this relationship growing? Growing together, or are we growing apart? Because middle ground and life in general, it's like that doesn't happen. No one says like, wow, I really just love how we have a totally stagnant relationship with this person for years. That essentially equals dying. So there's no like middle ground. It's one direction or the other.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah. And so, Derek, how about you? Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, sure. So what I'd love to know, and I'll give a little bit of context about what I do feel I understand, and that is, as a guy looking to empower a woman or, be there for a woman, any woman in my life, I think guys, we do want to be proactive. We want to know, what can we do? How can I show up? What can I do? And I've learned enough that there's no asking what a woman wants, because the answer is always changing, and that's kind of true for all of us as human beings. Every day is different. Every day is a new day. So if you have to narrow it down, I'd say it's presence, being there, being present, being in tune to her needs. So as a guy, I've also learned the importance of being proactive. Sometimes a woman doesn't know what she wants, so maybe I have to seek it out and figure it out for her. But it really helps us men to be able to go, what can I do for you? What do you need today? And get more than just, I don't know, whatever, do what you think. And then, like, we're guessing, and then we miss the mark, and then it's like, you didn't give us a target to shoot for.
I got the answer.
So how do we find the target?
Let me help you out. If she ever, in a random conversation, says, man, I would love to do this, or I've always wanted that, or, we should go do a walk on the beach and, watch the sunset, surprising her with something she's mentioned in the past, as tiny as it may be. Maybe even, I don't want to clean and I have to clean the kitchen. And if you wake up early one morning and clean it for her, that in itself is going to be like a huge deal to her. And just listening throughout your time with her to what she says, and it may not seem like a big deal at the moment. Maybe she doesn't focus on it and put too much attention to it, but the fact that you listen and later on you come around and do something that ties back to a detail that she spoke about at some point, that is the target. That is her telling you without telling you, basically what you could do for her.
Yeah, and that's amazing. That's golden. So I look kind of like being a detective. Like, I got to constantly get a little note. You don't have to see it. Like, okay, I should like that. What about, to go further with that, what if there's no hints being dropped? What if it's just like, I got nothing right now? Is there something we could ask or get the information or help you figure it out so we know what we can do?
You know what I think, I think it just depends, of course. It depends what kind of girl you're dating, or you're trying to impress, or whatever it may be. Because, for somebody like me who's always done it on her own, for a guy to ask me, just ask. Just ask. Like, a guy's like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But just ask me. Like, say, hey, I know you're doing this. Is there any way that I can help you? And the reason I say that is because maybe right now I might not have an answer, but it may trigger me that night to be like, you know what? He actually could help me with something, and it's this. And I may respond to you like the day after saying, you know what, how you asked me yesterday? This actually may be helpful. But because my wall already is up, like when people ask for help, it's hard to like accept it. It's like, oh, I don't know, I'll talk to me about it later. But it gives me the chance, like throughout the day, to kind of like marinate on the question and then kind of think about it. And at night, possibly say, oh, you know what? I know. And then I can come back to you. But you kind of like open the gateway a little bit. And then I kind of like push the door at the end of the night. Like, okay, I got it.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of what you guys said, and I think it goes on to, you know, what I said earlier. Women seem to be a lot more complicated, and gosh, I was trying to remember a quote I heard the other day, and it was like something on the lines of, if she says, no, that's okay, I don't want to go, or I don't want to eat, she's starving, or it's the total opposite. And unfortunately, a lot of times it is. And I don't know why a lot, because I know I've caught myself kind of going there sometimes, like just wanting the guy to kind of know what it is, you know. It's less now, but, you know, I think I'm speaking when I was dating, because now I think he really knows me. Sometimes I feel like he knows me better than I know me. But yeah, and I don't know why women do that, but I think that we are just so complicated. But I agree with you, Nancy. Ask and pay attention, and that's the biggest thing for me.
Is there something tying onto that as a man that we can do to really make you feel more comfortable coming to us for help or with the request? Because I've noticed sometimes, especially when it comes to more independent women, they're like, oh, I needed help, and I'm like, I said I was willing to help. Like I asked, even if, and then like, and there's almost that resistance, like not wanting to even if it's offered. And of course that's partly personality and maybe their own, you know, kind of opening up to asking for help. But is there something that we can do as men to like really encourage it and encourage that comfort level with coming to us for stuff?
I think, okay, then I'm speaking from experience. A lot of times they ask us things, and to us it's horrible timing. It's like we're doing something that we don't want to be interrupted with. And I think it's at those times when you can put down something that you're really enjoying and you can shift your focus to just her and just listen to her. It helps to open that door so she'll come to you, you know, without you having to ask all the time. And then again, doing those little things, you know, without her having to ask, that you remember she said, you know, 2 weeks ago or a month ago that she wanted to do. And I think the more we do that, the more comfortable that they feel coming to us.
And something that Joseph said about, you know, habits, it reminded me of, even in a relationship, creating good habits. And for me, well, and speaking from us, we take the time every day to talk. And I think that when you can really start building a strong foundation in a relationship where you talk, and coming from, you know, a place of, like I said, non-judgment and an open heart, not being defensive, but then you start learning each other and more about each other, so then it becomes almost like second nature. You kind of like are filling in the blanks for each other, because, you know, even something that comes up, like your question was, Derek, you could have talked about it even a couple of months before, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember her saying something about this. And so I think the more that you do that and create those habits, like he was saying, that's a really, really good thing too.
And you know what I can honestly say, being that it's hard for me to ask for help, and I can say it even from Derek being a good friend, like, you know, there's been times where I've reached out to him, like, because he already created that comfort where I'm like, he's reliable, like, he's not BSing me, like, I can honestly reach out to him and say, hey, I have this event going on, can you, like, blast it out, or hey, can you send whatever, like, whatever it is, like, so now you've already created that, like, comfort where, like, I know you're reliable, like, so I know, even for, like, the show, like, I know that you're going to be vulnerable to, like, express what you really want to say. So it's like I already know that I can count on you, so it's easy for me. Like you don't even ask me. I'm like, he's probably like, quit calling me, girl.
He's like, block.
her. But in that sense, it's like it creates that sense of and you're right, Ahmad, you said it. I was like, oh yeah, that is what it is. It's that comfort of I don't feel like, oh my God, I'm gonna be nagging him again. No, it's like, oh, I know he's totally good with it, so I can always reach out to Derek when it comes to this. And you know, I met a good friend of his, and she feels the exact same way. And I was like, yeah, you kind of create that comfort to like, we know like, okay, we have something going on. Call Derek.
Reliability, just like she said, and I think when you do come through for like a favor and you do it with such like grace and a good attitude, I think that helps us understand like he's really being genuine about, you know, being supportive. And it's not like if the behavior in doing something for us that we actually end up asking for, if the guy gives us a behavior that is like, oh, I don't want to do it now, or, you know, they kind of hesitate a little bit once we actually would like the help, then it kind of pulls us back as well. So however you react to the ask, I think is also going to help. The woman takes that into consideration for the future. Like, did he do it with a good, you know, with good attitude, and was he genuine, or did he kind of like really just say he wanted to help and really pray that we wouldn't ask him to do it? So
that's great. I'm gonna just sort of reiterate what I'm getting is that it kind of comes back to the typical difference between men and women. A guy might be looking, well, what are the words that I say, or how do I put it? But really what I'm getting is that it's about creating that relationship where there's such a level of trust and reliability and comfort that it's like it's proven. There's that sense like I know I can go to this person and they're not going to let me down. Especially for independent people, myself, I can get that sense of like, well, I don't know if I can trust anyone else to do it as good as I can, so I might as well just take care of it myself. And once someone's demonstrated, no, you can depend on me, I'm there, intentions are good, it's more cultivating that connection and that relationship, which probably happens over time, that then gradually allows that to open up. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, agreed. What do you think, Joseph?
Well, I was actually sitting here thinking about the fusing of women. I mean, because my wife, she's a electrical engineer, and she has a couple of projects that are keeping her late at work. And when she arrives home, I mean, she's like a ticking time bomb. So any thing like just gets, you know, blown out of proportion. I mean, I can ask her, you know what I'm saying, what time is it? And, you know, she was just like jump all over me. So I was actually thinking of a question, like, well, that question, and seeing if you ladies had, you know what I'm saying, an answer for that for me, because, you know, that seems to be the start of a lot of our arguments is, you know, she comes home, tensed or whatnot and stressed out, and then usually a disagreement ensues. And so I was wondering if you guys had a way on how to diffuse a woman that's, you know.
I have a good one.
I don't even know what you're going to say.
I would say, honestly, because you're saying, like, if you say anything to her, she's going to, like, blow up. You already know she's coming home stressed. So when she comes in, why don't you already just have a little note saying, I know you're stressed out, so, you know, I don't know, something that she likes, and just have it there for her. Or writing her a note and just saying, hey, the bath is set up for you. I know you're stressed out. And, like, just have the bath already set up for you. You don't need to tell her. Just do something beforehand to just let her know that you're supporting her as far as from a distance. But even something simple like that where she's coming home and she sees that, like where you're saying, you know what, I just wanted to tell you I love you. And then, you know, with a little something that you know she likes or something that reminds her of like a really great time that you guys had, I think it would be so big. But also, like you mentioned, she's stressed, so it is. It's like writing her a little note. If you're already going to be asleep by the time she comes home, writing her a simple little note saying, love you, know you're stressed out, the bath is already set up for you or something like that. I think it'd be pretty cool, like, or here's a gift certificate to a massage, whatever, love you. Like, you don't need to tell her, but it's that simple writing where, just like I mentioned earlier, as a woman, like in that, where if you're talking to me, I'm going to be like, ah, but when I read that, I'm going to have time to marinate on it and, like, really think about it and be like, you know what, he really loves me. Like, what am I doing? But it's without you saying anything, that you said something.
I think we underestimate the power of nonverbal communication, and something as simple as when she comes in the door, a hug, or if she likes a bath or a foot massage. When she comes in, give her a hug. Just a 20-second hug. It releases endorphins, and it could automatically bring her down from that escalated state. Escort her to the bath, escort her to her favorite spot to sit at, and just, I'm listening, and just let her do all the talking, and you just work your nonverbals.
I love that, and I'm just going to add to that because he took the words out of my mouth. I was going to, and like you said, Nancy, knowing their things. Mine's a foot bath and foot massage. Love, love, love that. But also, he hit on something, and that is, the energy behind it, and knowing if she comes in and she's elevated, how you can hold that by creating a peaceful environment. So whether that's having the bath ready, and even some low-key music or spa music, low lighting, and the most important thing is not to take it personal, because obviously that she's just coming from a mental place of really being stressed out. And so it has nothing to do with you or doing anything wrong. And too many times it's like, we take it personal. So that's an awesome question.
And I want to say also, when, let's just say she's stressed, she comes in, when she sees that you do this random act of kindness, it is definitely going to make her kind of open up, and I think we've all said it in different ways, but it'll make her kind of want to return that favor somehow, some way. It may not be right there in the moment. It may not be right there.
Remember, this is G-rated.
I'll say it. If I receive it like a beautiful gesture, it makes me want to go, wow, how can I top that and return it? Because back to the whole idea, are we going to grow the relationship? Are we not? Like, you want to continue growing, and that'll help grow the relationship. So that's my little tidbit.
And I'll tie a number of those things together, because when you first said it, I think the principle behind this is something that I learned actually reading a book from ex-FBI agent actually talking about relationships and stuff. He said, coming home and his wife was like, kind of railing into him about how he's been gone and all this sort of stuff on vacation, and he talked about the importance of empathetic statements. And this is exactly what you said, Nancy, with the note, like, I know you're stressed out. Acknowledging, like, so you must be really stressed out. You've had a long day at work. Saying back to them, I get you, I get your world, helps really, I think, diffuse it for anyone, but especially women, just being there saying, I know what you're, not I know what you're going through, but I can appreciate what you're going through. And when they hear that, and then the other thing to understand, especially with women, is they might not let up at that point. They might still be kind of almost testing it, like, well, you don't know what I've done. It's been so, and being able to stand firm in that, and like Jena said, like, it's not personal, like, okay, yeah, tell me more, like giving them that environment to really vent or let it out, or if she wants to take it out on you, it's being like, look, it's not me personally, if you just want to, like, I love you enough that I'm willing to just kind of stand here through this storm of whatever needs to pass, and I'm still going to be here for you, and I still love you. And demonstrating that, I think, once again, goes back to this idea of creating an environment where she goes, oh, okay, I can be okay, I can let this stuff process out. So what you mentioned was it kind of leads to arguments or different things like that. That would be where, if it's me, I'm looking at how can I ever keep it from getting to the point of argument, because I'm not taking it personal. I'm always there in support of her and letting her say what needs to be said and being proactive with all these different strategies, whether verbal or nonverbal, saying, I get it, you're stressed out, here's what I'm going to do for you in this situation.
Okay, thanks.
Woo! And you know what? It reminds me of, I use this analogy a lot because, when you're in a relationship, I always use the Go-Gurt. Everyone knows the Go-Gurt, and before it's opened, if you squeeze one end, it goes to the other end, but if you squeeze it, it just keeps kind of coming back and forth. And so if you cut the end and you squeeze it, it just all comes out. So sometimes, just like we were saying earlier in the conversation, the person just needs to be heard. And so sometimes even just not having a reaction, and I'm not saying it's easy. It definitely takes a lot of self-discipline to get there, but we feed on each other's energy. And unfortunately, in relationships, sometimes you can just be kind of at the tail end of that. And I've learned, him and I have both learned ways, with our stressful days, how to handle that. And we personally, something that we do that I think is really a good thing for everyone to do is we literally tell each other, go cleanse yourself. And that means go in the room, whatever, change your clothes, get yourself together, because you do sometimes come in with other people's drama and stress and pressure and all this stuff, and not taking it personal. I've learned it's like, okay, you need to just go. I'm going to be out here, and vice versa. I remember times that I was, at my old job and at high stress, and he was like, go clean up, and we'll talk later.
Yeah, it reminds me of working in customer service years ago. If someone's really angry or they're emotional, and I can keep calm and be understanding, and a lot of times once they process it out, they're like, I'm sorry, I was just being a jerk or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm not going to take it on myself and let them, that's their stuff to deal with. They got to process their emotions. If I can just stay in a place of solidarity, then a lot of times it just sort of takes care of itself.
Yeah, you know what? He said something that was actually very interesting. I think it'll help. Your question, Joseph, and even just in general. And actually, that was one of my questions to give out was, why don't men just ask? They don't ask. They know something's wrong, or they know there's a change of behavior, but they won't be open and vulnerable to ask. And so, for example, you, Joseph, you're saying, she comes home, she does this. Is there ever a moment that you sat her down and said, can we talk? How can we fix this? There's an issue that, I know you're stressed when you come home, and, we get into an argument, but I want to be able to help and fix it. So what are your thoughts, and, how do you feel about this? It's all about communication, but that is my question to all the men here is, why don't men just ask and be vulnerable when they notice that there's something that is wrong, or there's a pattern change in a woman, she's not responding as much, or things are changing? A man will just walk away and never say a thing, and you're like, but we didn't notice any of that? Oh, okay, great.
Well, I don't know. I think it's when you ask and you don't get a response, it's like, how many more times you want me to ask and play that game? If I ask and you don't say anything, well then I'm done. I'm going somewhere else or whatever.
Yeah, tying on to that, Joseph. There's a lot of appreciation for what a person's background is that we might not know. So first of all, there's assumptions about, does he actually notice? So you said if he notices, so that's a little bit different. But there could also be times where it's like, of course they notice. No, sometimes guys really just don't get it. They're oblivious, or they don't see it. Then, like you said, Joseph, maybe their past experience, their past hurts have been, I've tried to ask people, I've tried to do this, and it didn't work out, so why even bother? Now, whether that's fair or not, maybe that's the case with this particular relationship, maybe that's from prior relationships, but that can carry over. Then there's vulnerability, which I think is harder. It's hard for all of us in some ways. It can be, especially with men opening up emotionally. If it's going to lead to a very emotional conversation, there's a tendency to be like, no, I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather just walk away. Don't know how to handle that. Maybe not as comfortable. So that's the men's issue. But then there's also all of our issue, which is how much responsibility do I want to take for this relationship? So one thing that I've had to work on and continue to work on myself is never even asking, why do I have to be the one to ask? Why do I have to start this up? It's just assuming that, you know, I'm in it, whether this relationship fails or succeeds, I'm 100% taking responsibility. So I'll ask. Otherwise, it's like, should I call this person? Why should I call them? They haven't called me. Then the other person on the other line's going, and I should call them. But you know, they never call me. And it's like both people are doing the same thing. Someone's got to just be like, and it's not like a 50-50. This is something I've heard. It's not logical. It's not 50-50. It's not 49-51. It's not 80-20. It's both people say, I am 100% responsible for this relationship. So whenever either person notices something coming up, they're going to be proactive and just like, I'm willing to bring this up. I'm willing to ask. I'm not going to assume the other person notices or doesn't notice. And I even look at it just like a real quick analogy, like the organs in the body. What if, you know, the heart is pumping blood and maybe the lungs aren't working as well? Well, imagine if the heart were a person that goes, you know, the lungs aren't doing their job as well. I'm going to slack off. Like, you would die. Like, the lungs are just 100% as important for your life as your heart, as your brain. Everything needs to like work 100%. So if you consider the relationship between couples and a business and the culture, everything, we all need to pretend like, okay, I'm the heart of this relationship. I got to do my job 100%. I can't help it if another organ isn't doing its job. If that means I have to work extra hard, so be it, because the whole body dies if I don't step it up. So the whole relationship dies in this case if each person doesn't take 100% responsibility. So I would say it kind of comes back to going, well, I've noticed this pattern that there's things that have come up and, you know, you haven't asked about it. This would be helpful. Is there something with you? So it's kind of like it's not fair. That's basically what it is.
You can't necessarily expect the guy to always ask. Why can't we also just share it? Listen, honey, this, that, the other. So we can't sit here and say this is the role of the man 110% all day, every day, and this is the role of the woman. So
a lot of times women expect us to know or to notice, but honestly, you know, a lot of men aren't that emotionally mature. You know, as we get older, we have to learn to grow into that. And if you don't know something's wrong or it's changed, you can't, you know, work to fix it or to even hear it out if you don't know to ask. So, you know, you just don't assume that the guy knows that something's wrong or that patterns have changed, because, you know, I have friends that, you know, their significant others have cut their hair and it's drastic. And I'm like, oh, she got a haircut. What? So you gotta, you know, don't assume.
Yeah, if you're gonna assume anything, assume men are typically more oblivious than you are, and we're just not gonna notice all those things. If you're gonna make some assumption, assume in that direction that we're not catching it. And tying on to that, like I like to think of myself as pretty self-aware, but the times that people have been maddest at me, particularly women, or upset about something, it's like I had no idea. I had no idea they needed me to reach out or do something. Like they didn't. I might have even made contact and they didn't let me know what they. And so I'm like, and it's like I don't know. That goes back to like, give me something to work with. There's a lot of, and then the response back was like, well, you should have known. You should have thought about this.
And don't you think that a lot of times it does boil down to expectations? And that's why I was saying earlier, one of the biggest things I know even for our relationship is really about communication, because there's so many times we can, you know, assume that it's something, but then when you really talk to him, it's like, oh my gosh. And there have been a few times where he had no idea the way I perceived it, and I had no idea the way he perceived it. And so, you know, you learn so much about each other, because we do. Men are, you know, just like the book says, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's so true. And so, you know, I actually have a question for you guys. And, you know, in a perfect world, what and coming from all different perspectives. Obviously, we have, you know, a single guy, an engaged guy, and a married guy. But what do you guys think that your wish? What would be your wish that women would do more of? Loaded question. And remember, it's rated G, so.
We'll let the single guy go first. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
All right, I have to think about this one.
This is safe territory. Go ahead and be honest.
Yeah, I think it kind of touches back just on the question I asked earlier, which would be if the women can be more proactive in helping us figure out how we can help them, which is really the whole topic of this conversation, which is I love that we're doing this. We're creating that environment. So it's like if she likes something, not, you know, dropping clues. I actually like that. I like sometimes when a woman's indirect and it gives me kind of like a fun little thing like, ooh, she's not going to know that I'm going to do this for her. Like, and to surprise, like that's cool. But I don't just want that. I don't want to just constantly be on the search for what do I need to do, what's going on. More directness. So guys are used to being direct. Women are more used to being indirect. So it helps us. I'm not asking to change that indirectness. Like I said, that's a beautiful thing about women and about the feminine. It's a little more balanced. Like, let's not just go hardcore. He's got to be super psychic and figure everything out. He should know better. He should know I need help, even though I've said nothing to him. And like so give us something to work with and sit down. Tell us this is what I like. These are the things that are great for me. I'm not saying you have to like get me this gift on Friday at 3 o'clock, but tell me 10 things that you like that I can have in the back of my mind that I know, like little targets to shoot for and things, and be direct, open, specific, those types of things that are helpful. And so even kind of coming back to we said before, I'm all about the dual responsibility. So if something's not specific, as a man, I can ask. Can you specify? I can open up the communication. It's easy too if it comes in if women know that guys like that directness, that specificity, and saying this exactly what I like, what makes my day, whatever it is. You still got to figure out when that is, because it's not all these the same time, but like something tangible. Like that's what I love as a man, specific.
Okay. It's a good one. Like most guys, for the most part, we're really simple. We're really basic. You know, we like food. You know, we like our hobbies. You know, we like sex. Something, you know, within that realm, you know, you can't go wrong.
Oh my God.
You can't go wrong. You know, he's gonna have a favorite in all those categories. So, I mean, we're so simple. If you do that more, you're gonna be fine, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was agreeing with what Derek was saying about the directness. You know, that's what I would like more of. Like, with my wife, it's especially with being intimate, it's just like it's all me. I mean, I would like for her to, you know what I'm saying, I don't know, like, you know, attack me sometimes. It's like I'm just always after her for the most part. So if she would, you know, kind of just flip the script a little bit and, you know, attack me, you know, I think that would be something I would like. You know, that or bring some of her cute friends home. It's like,
Changing it up, making it interesting.
Right.
That's a good one.
These are all good tips.
Very good tips. And you're right. I think the communication is, as far as men being so simple with, like, it's either this or this, we forget because us women are, like, used to the multi-lines. So I get it. We get it. We heard you.
We heard you.
And you guys, it's getting time to close out, and I just really want to say how fun this was and how much I really appreciate you guys. And, it's not always easy just to have an open conversation, but I do know that both sides, it's a good topic and lots to talk about. I know I am going to be releasing my book this year. It's called 44 Days to Love, and I'm super excited about it. It's actually about relationships and how to, really not necessarily fix your relationship, although you could use it as fixing it, but it's more giving you a different look on how to have more control in your own life, but through nourishing your own relationship and having, the couple draw closer. So I'm super excited about that. And so in closing, I do want to say, Sisterhood Connections, Nancy and I are part of the Water Theirs campaign, and so if any of you have not heard about that, I will attach the link for the video when I upload it to the channel, so it'll be below. It's through March 22nd, but we've teamed up with women all over the world trying to deliver clean water to up to 1 million people. And Nancy, what was our last one? We're at 21 filters, right? 2,100 people?
21 filters, yeah.
Yeah, and so, our personal goal, we're trying to get 100 filters, and so whoever can share that, we still have a couple of weeks, but we do still have quite a bit to go. So each filter is $50, and it delivers clean water to up to 100 people for 10 years. It's phenomenal. And for such a short amount of time, World Water Day is on March 22nd. So Nancy and I are super excited about this and just hoping that more people kind of feel our passion and able to share it. And I know, a few of you guys out there have already donated. We really, really appreciate your support. And so we don't right now know what our topic is going to be next, but the first Saturday of every month we come live to you at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so in closing, Nancy, do you have anything that you kind of want to add?
No, I just want to say I appreciate the men and the women being vulnerable enough to have this kind of, communication and just sharing all these things. I learned so much, and I'm sure the men took away some key things as well. So I just think having, now that we've got, we had the chance to do this, is now to be able to go back into your current relationships, or at least know these things in future relationships to use some of these things. And so I think, I just really appreciate, all the men that were vulnerable, that wanted to do this, and they did it. And I just want to say congrats to all three of you.
Awesome. Oh, thank you.
Appreciate you having us on and creating this show and this opportunity for us to all empower each other.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, you guys. Do you have anything?
No, I just want to say, thanks for having us on, ladies, and thanks to the guys. That was a lot of fun.
We could go on and on.
All right, well, it was really good to chat with all of you guys, and we look forward to our next show, Nancy and Marisol.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.